My name is Emily Thompson. I flew overseas on Valentine's Day to surprise my fiancé Dan Grant, who's studying abroad. But when I arrived at his apartment, I discovered he's been sharing the place with another female classmate. They shopped together, raised pets together. They looked more like an engaged couple than Dan and I ever did. I first saw Dan standing outside his apartment building with a girl. They were laughing over grocery bags, so absorbed in each other's company that they didn't notice me until they were practically at the doorstep. My fiancé froze for several seconds, then put deliberate distance between himself and the girl before asking flatly, "Emily? What are you doing here?" I waved my phone. Grandpa insisted I come strengthen our bond. The girl beside him studied me curiously. I'm Dan's fiancé, I said, eyeing her up and down. She blinked those doe eyes before giggling like a freshly bloomed lily. Dan never mentioned having a fiancé. And you're so pretty too, how could you keep this from me? Dan? Before she could finish her coquettish act, Dan frowned at me. Which hotel are you staying at? Taxis get scarce here at night. I snorted. This 2-bedroom apartment was found by my assistant. Remember? I don't mind contacting the landlord for another key. Dragging my suitcase into the elevator, I left them trailing awkwardly behind. The girl, Lily Bennett, as I later learned, unlocked the apartment herself. I parked myself on the living room sofa and stared them down. Since we didn't get to this earlier, Miss Bennett, why exactly do you have access to my fiancé's home? Dan cut in first. Lily's my junior in the same program. She was getting bullied in the dorms and needed temporary housing. We're both from back home, so I offered the spare room. I actually laughed out loud. So you're playing house now? Lily wrung her hands by the entryway. It's not like that. I'm leaving as soon as I find affordable housing. Everything's so expensive here for international students. I nodded at her designer handbag. That purse could cover 6 months' rent. Her porcelain cheeks flushed crimson. I'll start apartment hunting tomorrow. Please don't be mad, Emily. Dan finally raised his voice, a first in our decade-long relationship. The art school golden boy rarely lost his cultured composure. Me? Sensitive? I scoffed. You're cohabiting with another woman behind your fiancé's back. Should we start calling Lily your mistress? Or let people assume I'm the homewrecker? When Dan stood speechless, I rolled my eyes and turned to Lily. Find a place by week's end and we're good. I commandeered Dan's bedroom, relegating him to the couch. After showering, I emerged to find both of them cooking together, the petite girl feeding Dan bites from the wok while he chopped vegetables. Their domestic tableau straight out of a newlywed fantasy. Lily Bennett asked, Dan, how did I do this time? Dan replied, better. Lily giggled. You taught me well. Does it taste like home cooking? I leaned against the doorframe watching them. They stood inches apart in matching aprons, their lingering gazes practically weaving cobwebs between them. The click of my heels made them spring apart. Faces flushed crimson. Well, look at these star-crossed lovers staging forbidden romance under my nose. Like a toad on your shoe, not dangerous. Just disgusting. Dan, we need to video call grandfather before his surgery tomorrow. I'd worked 3 months non-stop to arrange this overseas trip. The cardiologist warned grandfather's procedure had low success rates. We both knew this was his final ploy to force my marriage. Even after elevating Thompson Enterprises to new heights, grandfather still believed women couldn't inherit. His perfect solution? A pliable, presentable husband. Enter Dan, his golden boy who'd ensure our son carried the Thompson name. The original plan involved getting local marriage papers here for grandfather's benefit. But seeing Dan's little performance tonight? I'd rather swallow broken glass. After dinner in his bedroom, I laid out terms. Handle your Miss Bennett situation before our call. No slip-ups. This conversation would determine whether I gained controlling shares. Emily, Lily and I aren't. Spare me. I cut through his protests. That Renaissance portrait you wanted? Acquired. The invitation to Chris Harrington's private exhibition? On my desk. Every art student's wet dream, Harrington's endorsement could launch careers internationally. These were my bargaining chips. The video call lasted 30 minutes. Grandfather looked frail in his hospital gown but brightened seeing Dan's arm around me. When we hung up, Dan kept his grip on my shoulder. I shifted slightly while reviewing the stock transfer documents. His fingers tightened. I'm glad you came. His stubble grazed my neck. 3 months ago. This might have worked. We'd grown up together, the golden boy who only had eyes for me. Yet always kept emotional distance. Now his sudden affection reeked of opportunism. I shoved him out coldly. If he couldn't stay faithful during courtship, he'd be useless long-term. Sleep mattered more than this charade. Dawn would bring battle enough. I was jolted awake by barking. Rubbing my eyes, I opened my bedroom door to find Lily Bennett in athletic wear with a golden retriever. I hadn't noticed we had a dog here yesterday. Morning, Emily. I'm taking Ian for his morning run. I'll go apartment hunting this afternoon. Lily chirped sunnily. As if yesterday's awkwardness never happened. She clipped the leash onto the dog's collar. Good boy, Ian. Let's go jogging with Mommy. Then she called to Dan in the kitchen. Dan. Don't forget to prepare Junior's canned food, it's Saturday. Come on, Ian. Say bye to Daddy. Lily puppeteered the dog's paw in a wave before skipping out with her furry companion. Well, color me impressed, I'd just witnessed textbook manipulation in action. Dan remained silent throughout, offering me an uncomfortable smile. At lunchtime, Dan took me to a French bistro. We'd barely sat down when we encountered 2 of his French classmates, a couple. The guy greeted in French. Dan. You're actually dating? Lily's been posting about finding new housing online. Relationship troubles? Dan frowned in denial. But the guy pressed on. So is this lovely lady your admirer? Does she know you and Lily are meant to be? His girlfriend chimed in. Homewreckers who chase taken men, Dan finally responded in strained French. It's complicated. Stop speculating. Third wheel? Charming. Switching to flawless French. I asked the guy. Were Dan and Lily officially dating at school? Well, all 3 froze at my linguistic reveal. As Dan's fiancé who's already had our engagement ceremony. The real intruder here would be your dear Lily. I stood, casually appending my Merlot over Dan's head. Daniel Grant. The Thompson family doesn't tolerate humiliation. You're hardly our only option for a son-in-law. Dan scrambled to explain my status while dripping burgundy. But I suddenly saw him clearly. Though I'd never been madly in love, I'd genuinely envisioned him as my future husband. These past 2 days had shattered that illusion. Our arranged marriage wasn't even proper corporate alliance, just my grandfather's guilt over abandoning his first love. Mrs. Grant. The Grants were ordinary middle class. But Grandpa had elevated them through this family union to atone for breaking young Richard Grant's mother's heart. Dan's artistic talent and resemblance to his grandmother made him Grandpa's chosen redemption project. Leaving the restaurant, I reassessed coldly. Like the Mang conglomerate's stock crash after their broken engagement scandal. I couldn't risk Thompson Enterprises' stability. Economic principles applied when an investment's risks outweigh projected returns. You cut losses. I needed a reliable partner. Not this emotional liability. Having just secured control of Thompson Enterprises, I couldn't afford missteps. Time to find someone with better risk management credentials. I planned to pack my things then move to a hotel earlier. Maybe because I'd been overworked for too long followed by sudden relaxation. Combined with jet lag, I started feeling dizzy. After entering the bedroom intending to rest briefly before leaving, I unexpectedly fell into deep sleep. The apartment remained empty until nightfall. Through the haze, I heard voices at the entrance. Then Dan opened the bedroom door. Emily. I was helping Lily look at apartments this afternoon. Emily? I struggled to sit up. Do you have any fever reducer here? I must be running a fever. Before Dan could answer, a scream came from the living room. Apparently Lily had caught her fingers in the door. Dan rushed out without hesitation. After chaotic noises of doors slamming, the apartment fell silent. Earlier I'd vaguely heard Lily sobbing about her piano, playing fingers needing hospital attention. Weekly calling out twice confirmed they'd left. Normally this kind of fever would resolve with medication and rest. But currently I couldn't even get out of bed, let alone buy medicine. Not wanting to trouble others, yet stranded abroad with only Dan and a business associate to turn to, I called the latter. His secretary immediately arranged an ambulance to a private hospital. The doctor warned I'd have developed pneumonia if delayed any longer. During my 2-day hospitalization, Dan only called once while I was undergoing tests. Discharged on the third afternoon. My business contact provided a car back to the apartment. That evening was supposed to be Chris's private exhibition. Dan's invitation was part of our prior agreement. But I intended to claim the other ticket for myself. Mrs. Chris being an old friend. Visiting her was another purpose for this trip. Returning to Dan's apartment, I found neither him nor Lily there. My opened luggage lay ransacked in the bedroom. Had my laptop not remained untouched on the desk, I'd have thought thieves struck. Directly calling Mr. Chris. After pleasantries, I informed him 2 invitations under my name were stolen. Requesting police intervention if presented. Each exhibition ticket bore unique names and serial numbers. Furious, Mr. Chris sent real-time surveillance from the venue. Predictably, Dan and Lily appeared. Watching them get thrown out by security into the rain nearly made me rupture from laughter. Their pristine white formal wear became dirtier than stray dogs as they scrambled up. The pair got hauled away in a police cruiser. Having navigated corporate battlegrounds for years, I'm no saint. With Mr. Chris's permission, I uploaded the surveillance footage to Dan and Lily's university forums, plus an anonymous post exposing Dan's engagement while stringing along other girls. Their campus life should prove eventful hereafter. After visiting Mrs. Chris, I returned home. Grandfather's surgery had complications, leaving him comatose in ICU for days. My father called as I landed hours earlier. Grandfather suffered cardiac arrest and passed. My heart remained utterly calm, even feeling a sense of relief. The patriarch of the Thompson family spent his later years obsessing over having a male heir. But life often denies people what they crave most. In his youth, the old man had been a notorious womanizer. Though his arranged marriage partner, my grandmother, wasn't some docile society wife. After giving birth to my father, she systematically eliminated countless mistresses and unborn illegitimate children. Eventually, she dragged the old man to get a vasectomy. My father turned out to be a hopeless romantic, utterly devoted to my mother. She died shortly after giving birth to me, their only child. The patriarch repeatedly tried shipping me off to orphanages, claiming my presence prevented father from moving on. He pressured father to remarry and produce a grandson. But father inherited grandmother's ruthless streak. He got himself sterilized too. Thus, I became the Thompson family's sole heir. The patriarch had no choice but to retrieve me from the orphanage. Until I demonstrated business acumen, he saw me only as an incubator for future great-grandsons. With father refusing corporate responsibilities, I worked relentlessly through college, generating hundreds of millions in profits for our company. Only then did the patriarch finally acknowledge me as a true Thompson. At the funeral reception, my private investigator's report arrived. Dan and Lily had drunkenly tumbled into bed together overseas. Likely Lily's calculated move due to insecurity. Though Dan hardly resisted. They assumed scandals abroad wouldn't matter once they returned with diplomas. Break off the engagement? Your grandfather's barely cold. Mrs. Grant screeched with her trademark venom. You're nearly 30. No respectable family would want you now. I nodded to my assistant, who slid the termination agreement across the conference table alongside the Grant family's original betrothal gifts, a box of gold-plated costume jewelry. The patriarch had been so desperate to ally with the Grants years ago that he'd accepted these trinkets as ceremonial tokens. Please sign. Mrs. Grant. All exchanged items will be returned per the original inventory. My assistant stated evenly. Who do you think you are? Emily? The matriarch shredded the document. This marriage was your grandfather's decree. You can't. My assistant produced duplicate paperwork. We have evidence of Dan's infidelity, compromising photos, chat logs, hotel receipts, and his university disciplinary notice for misconduct. These clearly demonstrate his unfitness as a partner. Mrs. Grant's face purpled. So my son has an admirer? That proves he's exceptional. Beside her, Richard, usually the picture of academic decorum, mumbled. This was entrapment. We prefer an amicable resolution. My assistant glanced at her watch. But we'll pursue legal action if necessary. You dare sue your elders? Mrs. Grant spluttered. Crossing my legs, I leaned back with a deliberately casual smile. Let them choke on their outrage. Take the agreement or expect subpoenas. My assistant said. Wait. Richard blurted. The reputation-obsessed scholar couldn't risk courtroom scandal. Ignoring his wife's shrieks, he scrawled his signature. My mother named me Emily, wishing me eternal childhood innocence and robust growth like thriving timber. Yet they tried binding me with patriarchal chains meant for clinging vines. Fools, trees don't twist themselves into ivy. Now, I finally feel like I'm in control of my own life. I left the remaining matters to my lawyers and assistant. I froze all bank accounts belonging to Dan's parents and Richard in France, revoking every VIP privilege. The Grant family's villa was eventually reclaimed with help from security after multiple complications. Over 2 decades, they'd grown to treat the Thompson family's wealth as their own, which explains why they'd signed those documents so readily before. Their stupidity saved me considerable trouble. Dan had returned to the country, apparently. He'd sold off a bunch of his designer clothes to scrape together money for the plane ticket. Ms. Thompson. Dan is at the company entrance right now. And, what's he doing? He's holding a massive bouquet of roses. Kneeling at the main gates. Both knees on the ground. The guy's clearly unhinged. My assistant vented. Have security remove him. Call the police if necessary. I had stacks of contracts waiting while corporate CEOs in those novels waste time romancing. Real-life CEOs are just 24/7 work machines. Not that I'm complaining about the paycheck, hee. I'd long stopped caring about Dan or the Grants. Honestly, without that ridiculous ancestral romance between our grandparents, some rich heir and poor damsel in distress fairy tale, the Grants wouldn't have sniffed high society. Yet some people still overestimate their importance. When I returned to my father's house for documents, I found Dan sitting in the living room. My stepmother cooed at him like some benevolent matriarch. Yes. Even though my father supposedly worshipped my late mother, he still needed warm bedsheets to prevent him from knocking up gold diggers who might harvest his DNA for surprise heirs abroad. I'd handpicked this bland replacement wife myself. Emily. There you are. We've been waiting. Aunt Jiang grabbed my hand with fake affection. Dan came to explain everything. Young couples shouldn't hold grudges. He told me it was all misunderstandings, just harmless friendships. Emily dear. Ambitious men naturally attract attention. You shouldn't flex corporate power over trivial jealousies. I shook her off. Aunt Jiang. Stay in your lane. I'd happily find father a quieter wife. Her smile froze as she looked down. Dan finally spoke. Voice trembling, Emily. I was wrong. Can't we start over? I snorted. Over? I gave you 20 years. Plenty of reliable business partners would kill for this alliance. Why keep some unstable Romeo who disrespects his fiancé? No way I'd tolerate cliché star-crossed lover tropes. His face paled. Emily. He shouted as I walked away. I hated our arranged engagement. I pushed you away to rebel. But I surrender now. Tears welled in his eyes. I regret everything. Don't leave. Get help. I slammed the study door and texted security to clear the premises. Months passed peacefully until the Grants unleashed their grand finale. Mrs. Grant posted a viral video sobbing about her son's remorse, begging his wife to forgive him. Cut to Dan brooding in rain-soaked alleys, chugging alcohol like some tragic romance novel cover. Caption: 20 years of childhood sweethearts can't just end. Our boy's too handsome, girls throw themselves at him. Some rival corporation must have leaked details. Because gossip blogs immediately pounced on the melodrama. The glamorous scandals of high society dynasties far outshine the fabricated dramas of entertainment circles. Thus, OMG. Is this the childhood sweetheart romance of the elite? I thought soap operas were exaggerated enough. But turns out art truly imitates life. Who knew heiresses could get jealous and break up too? With all their wealth. Love's bitterness is their only real struggle. In corners unknown to the socialite princess. This Adonis quietly shattered. Confirming prime specimens never stay single long. Gossip accounts subtly painted me as a spoiled rich girl. Influencers seeking clout added their spin. Isn't this fiancé textbook villainous material? The guy's trapped in an arranged marriage, pining for his crush while groveling to this toxic heiress, real life angst novel. Netizens soon uncovered my identity. Keyboard warriors choked on their insults when prepped PR bombshells detonated. The viral hashtag Thompson-era stumps cheater dominated trends as our official accounts released timelines of Dan Grant's affairs and the Grant family's $100 million plus tab from Thompson accounts over years. Legal teams pounced, suing every defamatory influencer and tabloid. Though stocks dipped briefly, they skyrocketed past previous records. The internet crowned me modern revenge novel heroine as ordinary women rallied behind me. Their own heartbreak soothed watching the Grant family implode. Mrs. Grant, livid at my ruthlessness, launched a live stream tirade. Who wants that Thompson gold-digging bitch? My perfect son deserves admirers. What's wrong with hookups? She's been engaged for years without putting out. My boy has needs. Even if he strays. Any mistress's kids would call her mom. Ancient noble wives begged concubines to bear heirs. She should be grateful. Her rant went viral after I secretly boosted the stream. Mid-screaming, a connection request popped up. A sweet-faced girl appeared. Want my son? We only accept elites. Mrs. Grant sneered at her modest outfit. The girl smiled angelically. Sis. I'm carrying Richard Grant's twins. Time to vacate the Mrs. Grant title? The chat froze. What? Richard promised to divorce you for me. I smirked watching her pale. My PI had discovered Richard Grant's long-term affair with this student he'd groomed. Dangling marriage to escape adulting. After months of pregnancy blackmail, I'd simply stationed chatty aunties near her OB/GYN to gossip about mistresses confronting wives. Predictably, she'd rushed to live stream her coup. Netizens unleashed venom. Frowny face. How's that concubine life treating you now? Smile. Mrs. G. Like father. Like son, cheating genes run strong. Perfect son deserves admirers. Huh? Sarcastic pink emoji. Mrs. Grant's screeching got both streams banned within minutes. Later, Richard Grant reportedly landed in ICU, whether from rage or exposure remains unclear. The Thompson family servers crashed from viral traffic. My assistant grinned. The Grant Empire's bankruptcy auction starts tomorrow. After the commotion caused by Richard Grant's mistress, the public relations crisis on my end gradually subsided. Hashtags like Grant family affair and professor's mistress versus legal wife were supposed to trend for days, but vanished overnight. Removing hashtags cost several times more than buying them. I still wonder where Dan secured that kind of cash. My assistant slid into my DMs with fresh intel. Dan had taken $1 million loan from sharks. Between hashtag removal and Richard's hospital bills, they'd blown through 6 figures. Then came Lily's pregnancy announcement from France, demanding $500,000 for prenatal care. Clearly she hadn't realized the Grants were middle-class nobodies without my family's backing. Repaying that loan became impossible after Richard lost his tenured position. The kicker? They never intended to. Once Richard recovered, the trio fled overseas with leftover funds. Dan's superiority complex finally manifested in his artist's pilgrimage to Europe, brainwashing his mother about Western utopias. 5 years later, I spotted Lily at a crosswalk, now a garish spectacle getting pummeled by some CEO's wife screaming homewrecker. But hadn't she? Our French expansion brought unexpected tea. The Grants entered illegally, squatting in Parisian slums until their cash got stolen. When Lily tried dumping Dan, Mrs. Grant shoved her downstairs by 5-month fetus. Lily slunk home degree less while Dan's street art earnings couldn't cover baguettes. My assistant hesitated before dropping the bomb. Jefferson hinted Dan's entertaining clients now. I cut him off mid-sentence. Let trash take itself out. These days, my bank account and passport stamps outshine any drama. Freedom tastes sweeter than schadenfreude.